It gives me great pleasure at this time to introduce a really dynamic Toastmaster. Anthony Sani is a professional speaker and a professional sparker of personal growth and change. He believes we cannot be truly happy if we're not growing or producing. So tonight we're going to grow and produce with Anthony. He's made it a mission to help individuals and companies produce their best work and present their best selves through speaking, coaching, and consulting. As a Toastmaster, Anthony has achieved his DTM, the highest designation, within 3 years, and has served as club leader and district officer in various capacities. He enjoys work, music, exercise, loved ones, and sleep, and in that order. And I've seen Anthony in action, and you are in for a wonderful, entertaining evening. He's very excited to be here. I think he's really hopping on his seat. So if you see one guy in the front over here moving, you know that's our Toastmaster tonight. And he hopes that you will partner with him in this amazing event. The best return that you can get on your investment that you ever dreamed possible. The possibilities are endless tonight. Please help me give a warm welcome to your Toastmaster, Anthony Sani.
Thank you. I feel so loved. All the clapping feels... Could you do it one more time? It just felt so good. You gotta love Toastmasters. Toastmasters are always willing to clap and to laugh. Have you noticed that? You say one little thing, just smile, and Toastmasters, ha 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 ha. It's not like that in the outside world all the time. So it's just great to be in a room full of supportive people. So welcome this evening. Anybody here not know why you're here? Shoot your hand up if you don't know why you're here. You say, they said there was something going on. I just kind of wandered in, paid the $10 at the door, whatever. There was coffee. No? Okay, so John, you put this thing, put your hand down. Okay, so we all know why we're here. I want to give you an opportunity. I want somebody to raise and tell me why you're here. Just one person. So first person shoot their hand up gets the chance. First person shoot their hand up. Nobody. Going once, going twice. Back with the gray sweater. Why are you here?
Thank you. I'm here this evening to learn and to get feedback and just enjoy the company of other Toastmasters. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I didn't catch your name. Cheryl. Thank you for sharing, Cheryl. This is why we're here. To learn, she just said it all. To learn, to grow, and to be with other Toastmasters, to be in the company of other people who are supporting your growth. As Toastmasters today, I want to give you a word of the day. It's not an official meeting. Don't worry, there won't be a grammarian or an R counter. As a matter of fact, I'll probably be the only one to use the word. But do knock when I do use it. Give me something back. The word of the day, of this evening, is metamorphosis. Metamorphosis. And I use that word because if you remember high school biology, anybody remember high school biology? Metamorphosis is what the caterpillar goes, what the larva goes through to become a butterfly, right? But in English, it just means to go through a change that leaves you unrecognizable. So that at the end of that change, you look nothing like what you looked like before that change. So I'm hoping that through this experience, through this meeting, we will all go through a metamorphosis. Whether it's you want to become a better speaker, the opportunity is there to go through this metamorphosis. Maybe you want to become a better evaluator so you can provide feedback. You can go through a metamorphosis. Thank you, Joanne. I was snapping every time I say metamorphosis. And so whatever it is you're trying to achieve, there's an opportunity tonight to learn something to help you go through that metamorphosis. And maybe you too will be unrecognizable. at the end of the evening based on what you learn. And as Nandini mentioned, I'm obsessed with people who do great things. It's one of my life obsessions. And one thing I've always found about people, like I always say, is you see the beginning and you see the end, but you don't see what happens in between. It's that metamorphosis. And one thing that's common to everybody who has ever done anything great is they learn. They learn. So I invite you, biggest return on investment you can this evening, engage, learn, and maybe you will come out as a butterfly at the end. So to get us started, I want to invite the man who put this all together, the person who had a vision to make this night a reality. And thanks to his vision and the help of other Toastmasters, this evening is happening today for the benefit of us all. John McDonald is the present president of MVP Advanced. He has been a Toastmaster for a little under 3 years now, I believe, 2+ years, and he is moving things. He's a giant in Toastmasters, literally and figuratively. Help me welcome John McDonald.
Thank you, Anthony. As a Toastmaster, one of the constants that we have is you never know what to expect. This evening, there's going to be a couple of changes because I get to play the role of timekeeper for Santa Claus. It's a little early. We're in November, not December. The snow isn't that deep yet. But have you ever been able to tell your child, Santa's on the way? Santa's on the way. It's Christmas Eve. They're waiting for their presents. Santa's on the way. Well, Lance is on the way. And I get to monitor from the back, and I'll be able to guide what's happening. And Lance will be here. Lance is on the way. Sleigh bells are ringing. In the meantime, we have a very interesting program set up for you. We're going to be basing a lot of evaluations on Flo and Helga. Actually, Helga first, then Flo. And we're going to be using some video technology and giving you an opportunity to learn. As Anthony so eloquently put, the metamorphosis that you're going to see Helga and Flo go through this evening is going to be truly wonderful. And so, with that, I am going to pass the microphone back to our esteemed Toastmaster and let him do his thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me ask again. Shoot your hand up if you don't know why you're here. Because I just realized we didn't tell you what was going to happen this evening. It was intentional. It's called suspense. You know, when you give a speech and you say something like, you will never know what you can do until you try. You know, that suspense is what we were trying to do there, but with the entire event. So here's how it's going to work. Lance, who doesn't know Lance Miller? Shoot your hand up if you don't know who Lance Miller is. You don't. Excellent. Great, great. I'll tell you a little bit about Lance Miller before we go on. The first time I heard his name mentioned, I was in a meeting with Christina Cruz, and she just mentioned his name. Like, see, she was planning the club officer training, and she was talking about how she wanted, we're going to try and get Lance Miller to come and do a keynote. And inside me, I thought, who in the world is Lance Miller? But there's a way a person says a person's name like you should know who they are, and you don't want to embarrass yourself because you don't. Because it's almost like all the cool kids know who Lance Miller is, and if you don't know, well, then you're not one of the cool kids, So I didn't say anything because I figured, okay, I'll just go Google this guy later on. So Lance Miller is the 2005 World Champion of Public Speaking, and he's also a very accomplished public speaking coach. He has coached a lot of people who have gone on to do very well in Toastmasters contest over the years. So it's a real treat to have him here. But why have we brought him here? It's not just to speak to us or to teach us how to speak. We're actually going to learn by watching others. So Lance has been in contact with two of our speakers here in the district, one being Helga and the other being Flo, who you will both see today. And they have had a chance to run their speech by Lance. They sent him a video of the speech. He deconstructed video, he critiqued that video, and he provided them feedback. So what you will see is the metamorphosis of that speech from what it looked like before and what it looks like now. And toward the end of the program, Lance is going to be doing some live coaching as well. Shoot your hand up if you were here for the last live coaching that Lance did. Yes. For John and I think it was Joanne at the time, right? And Terry Cosley, Terry's not here. But he will do something similar at the end of the evening. So you will get a chance to see the evolution of a speech, which I think is priceless. It's a great opportunity. So in case you're wondering how this evening is going to unfold, that's what it will look like. So with me so far? Everything good so far? Does it sound good? So first of all, though, the fun part is you get to practice. Yes, you get to practice. Anybody here play sports? Or used to play sports? Or dreamed of playing sports? Or had a family member who played sports? Or watched sports on TV? That's pretty much everybody, right? Have you ever played a sport where you see one of your idols in the game? I used to play basketball, and I see a basketballer do something that maybe I had done once before on the court. How does it feel? You're like, hey, Michael Jordan did that move that I did. He copied me. He must have seen what I did the other day on the court. It feels phenomenal, doesn't it? So you get a chance to practice. You will get a chance to watch the videos of the speeches first. And then when you watch the videos, you get a chance to hear a select group of people provide their feedback on that video. And you can make notes of your feedback. And imagine how great you're going to feel when Lance shows up and says the exact same things you wrote down. I could start my own speaking business now. Wouldn't that be awesome? So I want to give everybody an opportunity to get involved. Now, unfortunately, we will not have time to take comments from everybody, but we'll take comments from a few select people before Lance comes and gives his overall view on that speech. Does that sound exciting? So put your cap on, sharpen your ears as we start. But before we do that, I want to actually get those speakers to come up here and share some of their experiences with us so we can see what the process was like for them. So join me in welcoming, and I will give them a proper introduction later on, but now I just want to invite Helga and Flo to please join me up here as we discuss their experience with the coaching. Helga, Flo. Hello, Helga. Hi, Flo.
Hey.
Thank you. Is your mic on? Can you just say hello?
Testing.
Huh.
Power on. That helps usually.
Do you want to
Can
help?
you help me put the power on?
It's a good idea to turn the power on.
There we go.
A little extra for your money.
Very
There we go.
risque. In case you're wondering, this is Helga, and this is Flo. Big round. Yeah, welcome them. So I guess my first question would be to both of you, and you can take turns in doing it, is why, oh why, did you do this?
Go ahead.
Well, as Toastmasters, we put ourselves out there, don't we? We're willing to take the chance. Why? Because we want to learn and we want to grow, and we know we have a message inside of us that's going to help someone else. It's going to be a gift for them in their life. But we want to learn how to communicate that in a succinct way. We can wander all over the place, and we can be so close to our story that we don't really see the best parts, the most important parts, the parts that others can identify with. And so I wanted to have this opportunity to work with someone so I could go through that metamorphosis and go from a hairy caterpillar, and I'm looking forward to becoming a pretty butterfly. I really feel that we all have important messages in our life. Some of us have gone through harder things, and some of us have had a smoother life. What's the song? Some of us, our lives roll easy. Some of our lives don't roll at all. Regardless, whether they're rolling easy, that's a lesson for other people. And I think as Toastmasters, we know the value of sharing the things that we have learned to help those people who are struggling around us. So that's why I wanted to do this.
What a tabletop, isn't it?
Well done.
Your
Well
turn.
said.
I'm looking forward
Anybody
to it.
catch the opening, body, and conclusion format? Plus the summary at the end, so that's why I wanted to do this. Very nice closure. Flo, I'm going to come back to a couple of things you mentioned there, Helga, but let's give Flo a chance. Flo, why did you, and don't say because you're crazy. A little background. So one time Flo you were in the MVP contest, right? And after the contest, the Toastmaster asked Flo, why did you do this? She said, because I'm crazy. I do things that make me uncomfortable, and I wonder why I do them later. So in short, in summary, it's because I'm crazy. You don't get to say that this time. Apart from the fact that maybe, yes, what other reason led you to take this step?
Well, I'm a big advocate of progress, not perfection. And you can hear that in my voice, that heartfelt progress. It's not about perfection. And when it comes to speaking excellence, I believe that none of us are born as excellent speakers. Evolutionarily speaking, we're not meant to be in front of a crowd with all eyes focused on us. We're not built or wired that way. It's a learned skill. And I truly believe that excellence is accessible and attainable for each of us. So what this tells me is that, first of all, there's a steep learning curve. It's clawing my way up that learning curve. It's a crap load of work. It's never easy, it's never comfortable, but it is so worth it. And the final thing, this tells me that regardless of whatever skills we come to the table with, this is accessible to all of us. So to me, it's more important about progress, not perfection, when it comes to life and when it comes to speaking excellence like tonight.
Thank you. You know, there's so much to say about what you said. But first of all, can we all just take a little oath and promise that we will not laugh at the videos when we watch them? A little oath. Just say, I, my name. Actually, say your name. Okay, I get it's been a long day, but stick with me here, people. Come on. I, my name, will not laugh at these beautiful people's videos.
I know.
Regardless of how funny and how much it makes me want to laugh. Even if Anthony laughs. Thank you. Why I say that is because let me ask you this. You recorded this video in an empty room, I'm guessing. Yours was not in an empty room? Was yours in an empty room? You had an audience?
It was in Kelly's living room.
But did you have an audience?
Well, Kelly.
One person. Did you
One
have
person.
an audience?
I did, but I just threw this speech together. I mean, I had written the speech before, but I literally threw it together the night before, and I thought, it's just for Lance. No one else will see it. Sorry.
That's what I was told as well. No one's going to see it.
Well, surprise, surprise.
And I had tweaked my back 2 days before, so I couldn't bend. I couldn't put socks on. So I was standing there it was ridiculous. It was funny.
Remember the oath? Remember your oath. Remember your oath. Okay. So the reason I ask that is because I haven't seen the videos myself. I can't wait, to be honest with you. But the reason I ask is because I find that, if anybody ever been videoed when you speak? Anybody? When you saw the video, how did you feel? Great? I want you to coach me. The first time I saw myself speak on video, I was alone and I still wanted to hide under the rug. It was horrendous. And I think a lot of that is because sometimes you're filmed in an empty room, sometimes you're not, sometimes you're filmed in a room full of people, but it's just not the same when you finally watch yourself. And some people I know struggle with watching themselves. So I guess let me ask you this, and this is not turn by turn, let's just have a conversation here. How did you deal with the discomfort? Because in a sense, you are putting yourself out there. And a lot of us that come to Toastmasters, we're trying to get better at speaking, get more self-confidence. Some of us have moved from a different country. We're in a new environment. It's very, very uncomfortable. How did you cope with that discomfort when you were going through the process? Aside from ibuprofen, in your case, with the discomfort for the back.
It took us about 2 hours to film and record a 7-minute speech. That's how painful it was. And when it is uncomfortable to watch yourself speaking. It's like watching yourself dance. None of us need to see it. We just need to turn the lights down, and shake our booty and do what we need to do. We don't need to have a light on or a mirror in any way. But aside from that discomfort, it is an invaluable tool to see dispassionately how one speaks, where the areas of improvement can be, where there are things that we do that we're unconscious about, and that's how we improve. So, like I said earlier, it's never easy or comfortable, and here's one example of this process.
And you kind of want to kick John in the shin now for showing your video, which we all will watch.
I was told that no one's going to see it, just Lance.
That's, and there's actually a law that allows law enforcement people to lie to you. Did you know that? Law enforcement people are legally allowed to lie to you. So within Toastmasters, the president, if you look in the bylaws somewhere, really,
fine print.
For the good of the overall community, they are allowed to lie to you. Helga, what was your experience with the discomfort?
I will echo everything Flo said. She said it so beautifully. I have not actually watched the whole video. That's how much anxiety it created for me. And I told John, I can't believe you're showing it. And he said, don't watch the rest of it then. Just go with the flow. And he said, you'll be a different person. You'll be metamorphosized. And I thought, okay, the person who you see on that video is metamorphosizing, just like everyone else in this room. So knowing Toastmasters is a safe environment. There are such good people here, and you know the ones in your club, and I know the ones in my club, and even beyond. Amazing, wonderful people that are helping push each other forward. So I'm taking a deep breath. And I'm hoping that you'll be my buddies afterwards anyway.
Excellent, excellent. Well, because time is short, I just want to move on. But before I ask you to go back to your seat and we cue the video, for those of us that are here, now, not everybody's going to go and get coaching from Lance Miller. Not everybody's going to go and get coaching from anybody. Some people, they just want to get better at maybe even being coaches, giving feedback at work. Everybody's goal is different. If you were to share with all of us one perhaps universal lesson or universal takeaway or change that you've gone through that can help each and every one of us in our goals to be better, that you have gained through this experience, what would that be? Now, if that were a table topic question in the contest, I would be fired. But I know I think you understand what the question is, right? Share with us some universal learning from this experience that would help each and every one of us get better at whatever it is we want to do.
I think that's a fantastic question, Anthony. The one thing that I've taken away from this experience especially is that all Toastmasters, all speakers are always working on something. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner Toastmaster or a pro speaker. Everyone has something to contribute. Everyone is on that journey, and everyone is working on something. Helga's working on something. I'm working on something. Anthony's working on something in our speaking. So it underscores that progress, not that perfection. So by knowing that, it spurs me on, because it's not about being perfect. That's why we're up here, to get better, to progress.
Thank you. Helga.
I think what I wanted to learn, and Lance has really helped me, how to sequence a story, how to tell a story. I love telling stories, and I really want to get better at telling my stories because they're my personal life journeys. And he helped me understand where I was jumping in too early in my story, where I needed to develop the setting a little bit more. This was new. It was like writing a speech. And I understood some ideas about speech writing, but nothing like what he had taught me in this process. And he explained that you need an Act 1, an Act 2, and an Act 3. The Act 1 is the setup.
Hey, no spoilers.
Oh, spoilers, right.
Spoilers.
Enough there. So
don't
in
want
the
them to
process, I learned about the acts, and it was incredible. He was really, really helpful. And I realized I could tell a much better story, even if I'm just talking to my granddaughters. I now have a sequence and a flow, and I understand it so much better. So that was one of my major takeaways.
Thank you, Helga. And thanks to you both for stepping up and doing this for the benefit of us all. One big round of applause for them. Helga and Flo, as you take your seats.
Thank you.
You can go on and take your seats, and we'll be watching the video very shortly. Now, we're doing, like I mentioned, we will be inviting you to provide your own evaluation. Now, again, you won't give it verbally, but to practice your own evaluation as we watch the videos. Following each video, we're going to have a circle of gold. Shoot your hand up if you know what circle of gold is. So I say about 50% of the room know what circle of gold is. Some of us do not know. And one of the pioneers, the champion of circle of gold in our district is here with us, Darlene Davies. And I'm going to be giving Darlene an opportunity to come and briefly describe what circle of gold is. The reason I'm doing that is so that we get the spirit behind it, and we know how it would typically work. Now, I'm just going to check with John. Do we want Darlene to come up before the video, the first video, or maybe after? Okay, so we'll let Darlene come up and talk about Circle of Gold. That way, the video is fresh in your mind when you go through the Circle of Gold with us all. Sound fair? Everybody ready? So put your hands together for me for Darlene Davies. Darlene Davies is one of the iconic figures in District 42. I see her in virtually every major event that I have attended. She has mentored many Toastmasters. She's been a Toastmaster for decades, and she's really just a shining light of leadership in the district. So help me welcome Darlene Davies.
So now, he asked how many people here knew about Circle of Gold, but what I want to ask you is, stand up if you've ever been helped by a circle of gold. You can see that it's already started to help people in the area. You can sit down now. I did a little calculation the other day. In the last 13 years since we started Circle of Gold, we have impacted nearly 600 people in Regina and the Calgary area, and now in Lethbridge and in Medicine Hat. So it is something that has really been started to really impact people. Circle of Gold is not about winning. The gold part is the gift that you give the audience, the gift that you give to each other. A circle of gold, so just imagine yourself, you're in a room, and there's about 10 of you there, and you're all sitting in a circle, and each one of you is going to be helping the other to be the best that they can be in speaking or in evaluation. And the big kind of bonus thing that happens after that is that you've made new friends, and many of these people go on to become very strong leaders as well. There are people in this room that have been with Circle of Gold and me for a long time. Nandini, Marvin. Who else is in here that's Joanne, Christina. She's pointing at somebody, but I don't see it. Oh, Gita. You're here, Gita. Great. Gita actually leads a Circle of Gold on Saturday mornings, just before, 6 weeks before contests. So Circle of Gold is a group of people who want to improve their speaking. And they don't always have to be Toastmasters. Sometimes they're professional speakers. We had a professional speaker in several of our Circles of Gold. It is people who are really wanting to improve their speaking and have an environment in which they can do it and really workshop their speech. In a Toastmaster meeting, you may be able to do your speech and you'll get a couple of people giving you feedback, but you can't practice it and workshop it because there isn't time. And the Circle of Gold supports Toastmasters by providing that time. If you are interested in Circle of Gold, you'll find that there are many different kinds. So some are just a circle that's in a club. Lena Liu here is leading a Circle of Gold for a club, literally speaking. there are open Circle of Golds like Gita's, which is open to anybody in the whole of City of Calgary. And there are Circles of Gold that are only for specific purposes, like supporting a contestant, like Joanne when she went to the International. And there are some people in this room that have been in this year's Circle of Gold preparing the district contest for humorous speech. Those are one-time things that are just maybe 2 or 3 meetings. The Circle of Gold that are involved in runs for a longer period of time, maybe 2 months or 3 months. So it is an opportunity for people to help each other become the best they can be and give their gift of gold to each other.
Thank you for sharing that, Darlene. As I mentioned earlier, there are people who have been pre-selected by their feedback. So what we're going to do now is we're going to watch Helga's video. Are we ready to go, Mr. Maury? All set? Okay. So sit back, relax, enjoy the speech. As I said, write your own evaluation down. Take notes of what you think she could have done better or what she did very, very well. And then we'll come back and we'll go through the Circle of Gold with Helga. Just so you know, Helga will not be allowed to speak during the Circle of Gold. You will not be allowed to say, you know what, the reason I did that is because, you see, there was a little patch on the floor, so I had to jump over it. That's why I did that motion, when I jumped over it. No, you don't get to interrupt in the Circle of Gold. You just take it in and to pick what you use and what you don't use. That's the beauty of it. Yes? Not in this one. Well, in this one, you don't get to interrupt because, of course, there's a gazillion people here. Thank you for that clarification. So we're going to go ahead and watch the video now. Enjoy. No judgment, no laughter. You can giggle a little, but no uproarious laughter. Richard, when you're ready. Thank you.
With her speech titled, Hello, Goodbye Anger, Hello Freedom.
What is the hardest thing that you have ever had to forgive? Imagine having to forgive a driver in Vancouver, a dangerous driver, who had come off the Trans-Canada Highway absolutely flying. He was still doing 120 and a 60. He came up behind a cyclist named Ben. He was 25 years old. He was a provincial level cyclist, and Ben loved life. He was riding along the side of the road, having just gone out with his buddy and ridden 75 kilometers that morning. Ben was a brilliant IT manager. He was a guy who loved other people and had been a leader of leaders. He was a lightning rugby player, and he was also just back from Rwanda in Africa, where he had helped to build a school. He was pouring concrete and setting up all the computer systems for a school that was going to raise up new leaders to rebuild the nation of Rwanda after the genocide. And today he was zipping along 200th Avenue just ahead of the driver. The driver was doing everything wrong. He ignored a number of traffic laws within less than 60 seconds and came up behind Ben, and he said, I gave it the gas to merge over. I had to get over in the other lane. And that's when he heard the boom. He hit Ben with such force that Ben was hurtled through the windshield. He smashed his helmet to smithereens. He was catapulted over the car as it went underneath him, and he crashed to the ground, and he broke bones. The car squealed to a halt. A young woman came running over to do CPR, and she wept as his blood surrounded her, as she knelt beside him saying, I cannot find his pulse. I can't find his pulse. Ben had died instantly. Ben is my son, 25 years old, and he was killed on that road in Vancouver that day. When I got the news, I felt like somebody had hit me with a baseball bat. I literally collapsed to the ground and I screamed. I couldn't get up I had to crawl to the toilet to throw up. In the months that followed, the pain and the grief was so intense.
I could have clawed that driver's eyes out with my own fingernails, and it would not have been enough. Night after night, I stayed up thinking about just the right words that were going to stab him in his heart and make him bleed like my son had bled that day. They were going to make him bleed emotionally, and I would be able to give him that punishment. But what was happening to me is I was not sleeping at night. I was not eating right. I was not able to even focus. I was letting my anger spill out on people around me. And this bitterness was eating me alive. I was the one who was slowly dying now, and I knew I needed to do something about this. And I didn't know what. One day I went to the farmer's market, and I saw this beautiful bushel of tomatoes. It was around this time of year. And they were red and shiny, and I had an idea. I brought them home to my bathroom, and in my bathroom, I took one tomato after another, and I threw it with everything I had against the wall, one after another, screaming till the air was blue with my language. I was releasing the anger I had against that driver. I was mad at the world. I was mad at God. And that day, after I finally had spent my anger, I collapsed, weeping and exhausted. And I was able to take this huge step forward in the thing that was going to set me free. And that was forgiving this man. And as forgiveness came into my life, there was something very interesting that happened. The pain and the anger started to lift off. And something very sweet and gentle and tender slipped in underneath. And that was peace. Slowly, I was coming alive again. I was able to just a minute. I'm sorry, I need to gather my thoughts again. I just saw the green move, and I thought, okay. I was able to once again come alive. I was able to laugh at a joke by a joke master. Thank you, Jeremy. I was able to enjoy a sunset in the Rocky Mountains, and I was able to get excited about a 75% off sale on my favorite shoes. That was pretty cool. Slowly, I realized that what had happened to me is victimization and anger had come in, and self-pity had come in on the coattails of my bitterness and my anger. And as I forgave little by little and released the anger and the unforgiveness out of my heart, I was growing in that peace once again. When it came to the trial, I realized I had come a long way when I actually had compassion for this driver in my heart. But let me explain what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not saying it's okay that he killed my son. It will never be okay. This driver was found guilty as charged and was given a jail sentence. And that was right. However, forgiveness for me was getting free of the monkey on my back of bitterness. It was getting free of the occupation of my thoughts with this driver. He was in my mind day and night. He was living there. Forgiveness was being able to release the pain, and also it was like drinking the poison of unforgiveness and hoping that somebody else was going to be affected by it. Forgiveness is something that we all need to learn. Sometimes life brings us terrible moments. And if you have ever been betrayed, if you have been injured, if you have faced abuse, you have someone to forgive too. Everyone has faced injustice somewhere in our lives, and we have something to forgive. Nelson Mandela knew about forgiveness. He spent 27 years in a jail because he fought for rights for black people. And it was one of the most disgusting prisons in the world. Nelson Mandela said, when I walked out of that prison, I knew if I did not leave my anger and my hatred behind, I would still be in my own prison. He chose to forgive. He chose to leave them behind. And he became a man whose hatred was drained away, and that caused him to rise up to heal an entire nation of apartheid. Now, forgiveness is something that we all need to do. It is how we rise up from the ashes of our devastation. Forgiveness is how we heal ourselves, our families, and maybe even a nation. Let's throw open the gate of our prisons of bitterness and step free with the key of forgiveness and say, goodbye, anger. Hello, freedom. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Helga. Very impactful.
Oh, one more time, a round of applause for Helga. That wasn't nearly as bad as you thought it was going to be, right? Yeah, you see what I did there was I set your expectations really low so that when you watch it, it looks really great. I haven't seen that video myself, and I think that was a very powerful story, Helga. I can't wait to see what it looks like now because already it was very emotional and very touching. We'll go right into the Circle of Gold at this time. We have 6 speakers who have been, no, actually 7 who have been pre-selected to give their comments. Each speaker will speak for 2 minutes, kind of like a table topic, 1, 2. We'll get the yellow light at 1, and red, green at 1, yellow at 1.5, and red at 2. Thank you, Christina. And so they'll just give their thoughts on certain aspects of Helga's current speech. And I want you to look at your notes and see if there's any overlap between what you thought and what they thought, and then eventually what Lance had to say. Helga started to get into some of the techniques, but we'll get into that maybe when Lance is here. So the first person who will be speaking is Kelly Kaur. Kelly Kaur is, you've been to district a number of times, and right now, the last time, Kelly actually made it all the way to the international stage. So she's definitely qualified to speak on content for Helga's speech. So I'll invite Kelly now to give her thoughts on this speech. Thank you, Kelly.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and especially Helga. Thank you so much. I'm speaking about content, and I want to say what a powerful and difficult story that was to share, and you did such a wonderful job. Now, if you don't have content, you don't have a speech. We all know that feeling. And what you did today is obviously your message is the message of forgiveness. So therefore, you had to pull together a selection of stories to tell us about what they were. Now, you started on a very interesting note. I loved the story of this so-called stranger, Ben, who then happened to be your son. You got us in, and once you got us, we were trapped in your emotional journey. So the content was effective because of your story. Every time you told us a story, it worked really well. I can't get the picture out of my mind of you in the bathroom throwing tomatoes. What a beautiful story about grief. Don't tell us, show us. So every time you did that, it worked in a wonderful way, and that made it really powerful and poignant. Therefore, I wonder if you could do the same when you talk about forgiving, pain and anger, and peace. Can you give us an event? Can you give us a story? You're sitting, you're having coffee at Starbucks, and you start crying. We know that feeling, right? Where the grief just overtakes us, and then the lesson becomes clear. Finally, the ending. I love Nelson Mandela. He's an amazing man. But I love your story even more. Could you end on your story and your forgiveness and your day in court? Because when you talk about content and you give us your powerful stories, you make the best speech ever. And my heart goes out to you, Helga. Thank you.
And thank you, Kelly. We'll keep it moving. The next speaker is Jeb. Some of you know Jeb. Jeb has been on the district stage a couple of times for Table Topics. Help me welcome Jeb to give his talk, his feedback for Helga.
Helga, great speech, really powerful.
That took me on an emotional journey, and I'm sure everyone else here feels the same way. I really like the way you started with a question. That's a great way to hook the audience immediately, and then you went right to answering the question, which was very logical. I think the whole organization you had here was very effective, and it did take us on a bit of an emotional roller coaster, ups and downs a lot of the way. And that's powerful, but one of the potential downsides to that is it can lead to some confusion, right? If emotions are going up and down, where are we? And I think it could have had a more succinct message if things had been organized a little differently. So I've got some feedback here. So one of the things I thought is you started by saying, you know, what would you forgive, or what would be your forgiveness? And then you started describing an incident, but then you started talking about Ben's life and all the things he'd done and all the value he had. And that was really good because it took us, I think, in a powerful emotional place, but it almost distracted from the question, right? I felt like we'd gone somewhere else before we even answered the question that we asked, and then we kind of went back to answering the question later. Another thing I think could have been done a little better in terms of the organization. I would have liked to have heard you talk about the phases you went through, like start the beginning of the speech with the anger, the bitterness, the sadness, all the negative emotions you're feeling. And then as you get towards the end of the speech, you know, we can follow the journey you're making. You start seeing the value of forgiveness. You start opening up your heart. You start being able to relax and see the beauty in life again. And I felt like there was a lot of swinging back and forth between, here's the beauty, now I'm angry again, beauty, angry again, beauty, angry again. Maybe that's actually how you felt, but it was sending me a little bit of a mixed message. And the final thing in terms of organization, Kelly kind of touched on it too, is that one of the final points you should make in your speech should be your strongest point. And the point you made near the end of the speech was about, I think, Nelson Mandela's story. And to me, your story is more powerful to me than story. So I would have really liked to have had your story, something to do with your story, be the final impact. But overall, it's a great speech. I'm looking forward to hearing it again.
You won't have to wait for long. Who better to talk about body language than Joanne, this international finalist from, was it last year? She made it to the world stage last year. Was it last year? Yeah, welcome Joanne. She's going to talk about body language.
Thank you. Find Helga to be very expressive with her hands, and almost to the point where you can get distracting. One of the things I would love to see you do, you said, we need to do this. This, to me, says me. I need to do this. For a lot of people, if you use your hand down, you're inviting the audience to share, to listen, and to become part of what you're saying. So I would use the palm down gesture. That you can bring it towards yourself, but this says we instead of me. You use your voice very well, and I'd like to see it reflected when you're speaking. You said, I'm angry. Well, anger, if you're looking at the stage, and you had a limited stage, so that makes it really difficult. But when you're angry, stand up front, be angry. And when you're at peace, maybe move back and say, I'm at peace. Let your voice do the expressing for you as well as your body. Use the two together. Now, I think that what you need to do to help you grow is to take the time to watch the videos, see what gestures you use, and decide for yourself whether or not they're the right ones. Because there are times when we do things just because we do it. I recently watched someone, and when they are trying to emphasize something, they'll bend their knees. You didn't do that, but you have some other tells. Some that I would love to see the video again so I can show them to you. But for now, I think I'm just waiting to see what Lance has helped you with, because I know that that speech could be a winner. That speech is a wonderful speech. It's about something that's important to you. And I think we all need to see not only how you grew, but how you were helped.
Moving on, our next speaker is Susan Kramer. Susan Kramer is the current division VPPR, the VPPR of the year. Yeah, she's a distinguished Toastmaster, and she gave a phenomenal talk at the spring convention. She's going to be talking about the use of voice.
Thank you. And thank you, Helga. Sometimes when we speak, and lots of people do this, especially when they're nervous, we adopt a special voice that we use just for storytelling. And it is something that I have observed Helga do in the past. I did not see as much of it this speech, Helga, so good on you. It looks like you're working it out of what you're doing. But where I see it is, especially at the very beginning, you were quite choppy when you were talking, and you actually even had chopping hand motions that went along with what you were saying. And that choppiness, because of the way that you were using your body, it reflected in your voice whether you meant it to or not. And it was your body movement that was making the escape of air in your voice do what it did. I loved how you used anger in your voice as well. The tomato story, you had an excellent building of anger with the volume that you used. But again, I found that choppiness came into play as you got more and more emotional about what you were talking about. By the same token, though, I noticed you used a very quiet voice at a couple of spots when you were speaking. For example, when you talked about Ben dying, and then you talked about him being your son. My advice for you in those isn't the volume, because I thought the volume was perfect. It was in the pace. You needed to give your audience a chance to consume what you had just said. So the fact that he had died instantly, we should have all had a moment to grieve, and then a moment again to have that shock value of, oh my God, it was her son. So it's give your audience a chance to feel what you're feeling. And other than that, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed the way that you used your voice, and it really did help emphasize exactly what you were saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We'll just pause for a second right now before I go on to the next. From what you've heard so far, did you have any of those points written down? Put your hand up if you had some of those points written down. Okay, you know what they say, right? Great minds think alike. So congrats for that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take 2 comments from 2 people, so not so much content, organization, anything, just 2 comments from 3 predetermined folks here. And the first person is Gail. So I'm just going to bring the mic to you. Can you wave? Okay, so just give us 2 quick comments from Lead.
Okay, Helga, I was very moved. I think one of the things that happened was I found some subplots and some profiles. You did a nice job of giving us a glimpse of what grief can look like, because grief can look so different to so many people. And also, that you showed us the journey, and the journey when you calmed down, and that when you got into the peace, everything calmed down a little bit. And also, I think it's so important when we speak of something devastating like this, that you left us on a high point, a little bit, enough of a high point to make it uplifting and inspirational. Thank you, Helga.
And thank you, Gail. Where's Cheryl sitting? Where's Cheryl? Oh, way back there. Okay, so Cheryl is going to give us 2 quick comments about what could be improved in this speech. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you, Helga. Very interesting story and leaves us with many things to think about. But what I'd like to challenge you a little bit with, and in my opinion only, is give us that feeling of what we should feel like once we've forgiven. Because that really is the power of this story, and the moral for us all is that no matter how tough it is, open your heart and share it with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And now for the last slice of bread on the proverbial sandwich, we'll listen to Jeff. Jeff, what do you have for help?
Helga, thank you very much for giving this speech. I really enjoyed it. A couple things I really liked about it was, first, you used the show us, don't tell us, and it especially came through for me on the CPR lady where it kind of felt to me like you were acting out the lady who was giving the CPR. The second thing I liked was that you did make an effort to use stage, so there was a lot of stage movement, and a lot of it was concentrated in the more important area of the stage, more of a central front area. So I did enjoy your speech very much. Congratulations.
And thank you, Jeff. And Helga, has your head exploded yet? That's all right. Just has your head exploded yet was the question.
No, it hasn't, but I just loved all the positive comments, but I really will grow from the helpful comments you've given. Very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And with a nod or a shake of your head, was any of this similar to what Lance advised you on? Nod or a shake of the head. Okay, thank you. So, again, great minds think alike. We'll move on now to Flo's video, which is, I imagine, is going to be a different style, a different story, some different content, and we'll just do the process all over again. Right. Are we ready, Richard? Thank you. And I don't have to back up here until the video. Put your hands together for Flo for her speech.
3, 4. When was the last time you had enough? Had your limit? Rewind 14 years ago. I seemed to have it all. I had a good job, a nice house, and a partner. Isn't that what we all dream of? Steady paycheck, nice lifestyle, and someone who loves us. At least I had the first 2 out of the 3 covered. But man, oh man, number 3. His name was Derek, and on paper, we were a match made in heaven. We both shared a love for the outdoors. Check. We both were professionals, and we both had been previously married. Check. We spent every weekend hiking in the mountains together. One hike that I remember was the hike where I had enough, where I hit my limit with Derek. This is how our hikes typically went. We'd start together for about the first 10 minutes, and then he'd pull ahead and eventually disappear. Once again, left alone in the middle of nowhere. And he's got the bear spray. What if I got lost? What if I hurt myself? What if I met a hungry animal? Yeah, I'd make a pretty good lunch. And I'd have our lunch in my backpack. The path that I was on was flanked with tall, heavy brush on either side. Well, suddenly, I heard thrashing and King Kong heavy breathing behind me. I thought this was it. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna be a bloody bear snack. Where was Derek? And damn him for having that bear spray. Now, I couldn't see King Kong, but clearly he was big, heavy, and really agitated. I had never felt so lonely. Eventually I yelled, "Enough!" And thankfully, King Kong also had enough and ran away. Eventually I made it to Derek, and as usual, I got an earful. "Why are you so slow? I've been waiting here so long for you, and now I'm getting cold, and you've got my lunch." So Derek, you're saying this is all my fault? Yeah, pretty much. You know, if you weren't my girlfriend, I'd easily find someone else to be with. Wow, really, Derek? You sure know how to make me feel loved and special. Stop overreacting. You're so sensitive. Can't you take a joke? He had no idea what just happened. And in such a way, the acidic banter flowed between us. His words cut, and I bristled. In that moment, I realized between getting eaten by King Kong and being with Derek, somehow King Kong seemed more appealing. Shortly after that fateful hike, I told Derek, enough, take a hike. Looking back, I remember I wanted to be all those things he loved. Strong, fit, confident. I mean, who wouldn't want to be all those things? I'll show him. I'll earn his love, I told myself. Every relationship takes hard work and sacrifice. Isn't that what love is? But no matter what I did, it was never enough. The verbal floggings continued, and I grew tired and worn. Pretty soon, I started believing his lies. I remember thinking, maybe I am overreacting. When he told me how weak and slow I was, I'd say to myself, see how he cares for me? He wants me to be fitter, faster, and stronger. He sees potential in me. But the biggest lie I told myself was, it was better to be with someone than no one at all. How messed up was that? It was the lie that kept me with him for 4 years. Yes, it was hell, but really, it was a hell of my own lies, the lies I told myself. It took King Kong to break me out of my prison. What are the lies that make up your prison? I think it's hard to hear the truth. We don't like to hear it. I get that. The truth was, I wanted love. I learned with Derek that I had squandered some of the best parts of me on the wrong person. But I also learned I'm fiercely loyal to those I care for. I'm resilient and hopeful. But the most important lesson I learned is that I'm the only person I need to be good enough for. I am enough. In our world, there will always be the shamers, where nothing we do is ever good enough. It could be a significant other. It could be a parent. Maybe it's your manager, teacher, or even our leaders. Maybe you're telling yourself you're not young enough, worthy or desirable enough. Maybe you're believing you're not successful enough, smart or stable enough. Well, enough. We are enough. In our journeys, we might find ourselves in the middle of nowhere. But in the middle of nowhere, we might just find ourselves. Because at the end, isn't that what really matters?
Applause for the videographer. And the person who did that killer pedicure. That was phenomenal. Okay, we'll jump right into the circle of gold. And the first person who's going to be speaking is once district champion Aparna, talking about content. Welcome Aparna up here. The rules remain the same, 1 to 2 minutes. You can go under, but you can't go over.
Thanks, Anthony. Oh, there's Flo way at the back. So Flo, it was awesome to see you up there and see you speech, and I was excited to see Kelly's living room as well. Never seen it before. I missed the first line of the speech, and I feel a little bit like I missed something really important. So I was looking and I loved you moved what I heard. The first part of the speech that I heard was the good job, nice house, partner. And so I thought, okay, this is the theme of the speech, and this is what we're going with. And I loved how you took us through a story. You started off with your partner's name, you took us through where you were, what you were hiking on, and then you started immediately moving into some of the challenges that you were having in that relationship. I liked that there was a lot of detail there. I liked that I could really envision it. I think what would enhance it a bit more is to almost take us along a stroll of things are really good, things are really good, things are really good, because that's what the world sees from the outside, and then bring us into this is your world. So people see this relationship, it looks great. They see you do things together, they see you together, maybe people are saying you're the perfect couple, and then you stroll us down to the things that are leading you into realizing that you're losing yourself. Because I think that was a lot of the theme of the speech, is that you were getting away from your true self. And as you said at the end, you know, in the middle of nowhere is where you were looking to find yourself. Some of the other imagery, I liked how eventually you moved away from what was going down the wrong path and into what you were discovering about yourself. And I think that was a great way to finish off the speech. I think going further, I'd like to see maybe a bit more of you in that final thing, a little bit more power, more emphasis. And that's my feedback. It was a great speech, loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking on organization, Toastmaster extraordinaire, Darlene. Okay, welcome Darlene, please.
My job was to talk about organization flow. And from the video that I saw, again, like Aparna, I missed that first line, and it was really important for me to get context. What I like to see in organization is that the opening is very strong, and that it gives us an idea of where the speech is going to go. And then when the conclusion comes, it ties it up with a great big bow. You know, I look like Mrs. Santa Claus, right? I like Christmas presents, and I like to see things tied up with a bow. Your story was organized really well. It was the story of Derek, and then you told us all about the bear, and then you made a point. I realized that between Derek and King Kong was more appealing. So that gave us the idea that his behavior was not effective for you. And then you took the story to the next level and talked about the lies that you told yourself and shared all of that with us. And the point that you made was, at one point you felt like it was better to be with someone than on your own. And that's where you got to where the truth was, which was that you wanted to be loved and you wanted to be enough. So I followed that organization very well. I felt it could have been tighter. It could have been a lot tighter. The conclusion is something that I think Lance probably told you, and you will do it, is that you need to work on making a more succinct conclusion, one that can tie all these stories together and help us to understand how we can be enough so that it relates to us as well. I found it a little preachy at the end from my point of view, and I would have liked to have seen something that I could take home and share with my life and see how it would make my life better. So thank you for sharing that story with us. It was quite powerful. I really loved King Kong.
Thank you, Darlene. Speaking on body language, a man who knows a lot about body language, Mark Bernard.
Thank you. Yes, you did. I wore my big boots today. That's why I'm in my... Body language, to me, really supports the speech. And I know, Flo, that you had your notes, and I know how you work with your body language, so I'm going to share with you right off the hop that you don't want to make them contrived, because I know that you're very organized in your body language. However, I see three components here. I see when you're angry, I see the behavior that you witnessed, and I see the love afterwards that you actually kind of self-diagnosed yourself. So there's a few things here that I'm going to suggest to you. First of all, let me tell you what I think you did great. When you went, great. I want to see more of that. I went, and you really want to use your body language, number one, there. But you know the experience when you're looking from afar and you see a male and a female kind of having a discussion, and you can tell when they're kind of having a moment. I want you to have us experience that. Think of this. Seeing the video without sound. And if you can experience and see the different dichotomy back and forth with Derek and with Flo. And can you see that as if you were witnessing that? And in this speech, Flo, you have to be vulnerable. Because here you're sharing your anger. So when you hit my limit. And you say, I got left behind. Like, give us that experience as if we are experiencing it. Because your body language wants to support your message. That's the key. And I want to see more of that body language, but not contrived. Okay, because I've seen you speak, and you can be very, very rehearsed, like it's almost we can anticipate your body language. So with that said, I want you to watch this without voice, and if you can experience the anger, the behavior, and the love, you'll nail it.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing that. Marshall is, he's lived a very storied life. I can't even go through it all. He will be talking about voice for reasons that will become evident in the next few seconds.
As in, I don't need a microphone? Okay. Awesome. So I can use my hand. I really like what Mark said, Flo. The thing is, I want you to do the opposite. I want you to now listen to that. For everybody here, when you videotape a speech, right, turn the monitor around or just listen to the voice, because there was so much opportunity. That is definitely a speech. I think everybody would agree. You could have made us see everything in that speech. What that idiot Derek looked like, because he wasn't protecting from the bears. What the monster looked like. Now, when I talk to the monster, guys, be careful with descriptions. Okay, King Kong. King Kong immediately put an image in my mind. It wasn't a scary bear. So be very, very careful with that. If it's something that we're very used to, something that everybody in the world has seen, don't do it. The scariest monster you've ever seen in any movie, you've never seen. Think about that, guys, right? It's been described so much. Flo, you want the audience to make up that huffy, furry, half-ear, half-eye missing bear. You get what I'm saying? For all of you that came in tonight and saw that large four-wheel drive with the bear on the side, that's my shot. I see over 8,000 bears a year. Your voice needs to change for bears. Okay? Pauses, Flo. There definitely was not enough pauses in the speech. I think if you listen back to it again, besides looking at it and listening to it, there were some great opportunities for pauses. Give me Derek's voice. Give me that idiot voice, give me that dumb voice, give me that mean voice, whatever it is. I think there was really room for you to describe Derek to your voice as well. And once again, just for everybody and this, describe it. Don't tell us what it is. Number one, use your video, but do both. Watch the video, as Mark said, all by itself. Listen to the audio, all by itself. And as Lance will probably speak to tonight, when you're speaking to a group like this, learn how to speak with a microphone. If you're going to go on with this speech to district or international, learn how to speak to a microphone. I'm curious how you do that tonight. Great job. I look forward to hearing it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. First of all, by law, I'm required to tell you this, that if you ever find yourself in a room speaking to over 100 people in a place like this, do not try that at home, speaking without a mic. You will hurt yourself. But thank you for showcasing what we're talking about here. So the last time at this point, I asked you if you had anything you agreed with so far. Now I want to ask you another question. Shoot your hand up if there's things that have been said that you don't agree with. Go ahead. It's okay. If you don't, that's fine as well. So you've agreed with everything that's been said so far. Huh, how about that? Thank you, Juliana. I don't, and you know what? That's fine too. At the end of the day, you will do what works best for you. But it's better to make a decision to do something than to do it foolishly and not know why you're making that decision. And I think that's a big part of the circle of gold is you give all this information and you give your best, but the person still has the choice whether or not to do it. And you can always tell them, I told you so later. Feels great. But the point is you do what works best for you at the end of the day. So we'll move on to the next. Sorry about the lip smacking there. I'm just having such a good, it's like candy in my mouth. Sharon is going to be giving us 2 comments about flow speech. Where's Sharon sitting? Sharon? Okay, so right at your seat there, Sharon. Comments about flow speech.
Flo's at the back. One thing they told me, Flo, was that I was not to repeat anything that's already been said. So they left me slim pickings here. One thing that I would like to comment on that I thought was very good was that I felt your stories were much more natural than usual. Sometimes I have to agree with Mark, they tend to be a little contrived. I felt like they were coming from the heart more this time, okay, and more natural. I like the fact that you were changing positions when you were doing the dialogue. It becomes difficult at times remembering which person is doing the actual, speaking at which time. And I think it'll be much more natural as you practice it, but I thought it was a really good start, the way you did that. And the one thing I'm going to end with is that I thought you chose good stories. I've been there. I think this is something a lot of women can relate to. And so don't be afraid to add even a few more anecdotes to the story.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Just one more thing before we move on. Anybody here still paying attention? Still paying attention? You're still here. I'll tell you why I asked this question. Is because I was listening to a really successful person. If you go by money, he's made a lot of money. If you go by relationships, he's very connected. If you go by health, he's in his 70s and he looks like he's 40 years old. So by most measures of success, he has done very well. And they asked him a question. They said, what is the one thing that you would have to, what would be your piece of advice for people who are trying to make something or build something? And he said the strangest thing. He didn't say work hard. He didn't say be nice to people. He said, pay attention. Just pay attention. Everything you need to do, it's around you already, but you're just not paying attention. And some of us have been so broke we couldn't pay attention. But that's a different story. You got to get over that. So I encourage you, as you're here, stay engaged, pay attention, and there'll be that one nugget or two that will jump out to you specifically, very personalized, that you can go out and implement tomorrow. Pause for a few. Okay, so we'll move on. Carolyn is going to give us 2 comments about what with Carolyn.
Mark Brown, the 1995 world champion of public speaking, says, "Don't tell us, take us." There's been bits of that alluded here, but I feel that you could take the journey of being with Derek and using things called VAX, which is visual, auditory, kinesthetic, which would be like the motions also, as we get to finding out what this fellow Derek is like, and then culminating in meeting Marshall's scary thing, which then becomes your climax, and then turns into resolution and what you can call back to. That would be my first suggestion, is Mark Brown, don't tell us, take us. The second thing is, when I think back of all the speeches that I've listened to over the years, it's usually a phrase or some specific action that the speaker that I remember. For Lance Miller, if you see his speech, it's remained in my head since 2005. I would like you to find something, either a phrase that sticks,
or something that is emotion like falling down or something that we then remember lighting up the cigarette in Las Vegas. My 2 points.
Q. Carolyn. And for the best quality, we will hand it over to Matthew Fox for his 2 comments. Thank you, Matthew.
Good evening. Flo, fantastic speech. But I'm focusing on the best quality and how to settle on the best quality when there's so many qualities. And when you look at a speech, you see many, many qualities in those speeches. But there's always one. Throughout life, there's always one priority in what you've got to do. There's always one quality that you take away from a Toastmasters meeting or a speech, and you go, that's the hook. That's what I remembered about that speech. And so the one quality I took away from your speech tonight was emphasis. You used emphasis fantastically well throughout your speech, and it's something that we really need to build into our speeches. And I took many, many examples. I had it all. Someone who loves us, and it's how you use your tone and your voice in there. You know, take a hike, and it's changing the tone. Enough, one word, emphasis. So throughout your speech, and you did it fantastically well, you used emphasis really, really perfectly. Thank you.
You're thinking, I want to talk to somebody about the feedback. I want to get their opinion about it. Well, here's your chance. For 10 minutes, if you could return back at 8:20, we are going to start the second dynamic half of our presentation today. Just a reminder, bathrooms are in the back. Please enjoy yourselves.